8, 2, 3, 4. After the lightning bolt, it's like you're waiting for it to happen, and then all of a sudden, hey, Bart Keeler. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask. Obviously, I mentioned in the first half hour here on the Power Hour that you have an open invite next week.
Yeah.
With the madness that is going on next week, what days, sir, will work for you? Monday?
That is a great question. I'm not entirely sure yet. I will be traveling for work. I'll be in Las Vegas, so
Well,
there's
that's right.
a few hours of a time difference there. But I definitely will be up working in the morning. So if I'm available, I might just pop in. Maybe that's what I do.
Okay, well, you can either hop in, or when it's later Las Vegas time, we can tape something.
There we go.
That to the network, so you're not having to get up at 7 o'clock, dust yourself off, get a cup of coffee like you are right now, Eastern time at 9:30. I was going to say, what's
shout out to the Reed College of Media at WVU. It is Black Diamond Trophy Day, so I am ready to be hurt.
Okay. All right. So we got a lot of stuff to get into here in the half hour that you're visiting with us right now. Let's go back to last night, first and foremost, and what you thought about the Leagues Cup Showcase and the two matches that happened last night.
Well, one, always good to beat Mexican teams. Liga MX and the Mexican Federation is just really down bad, and it's great to continue to pile onto that. But I think overall, it seemed like both games were fun. Certainly the Nashville game, there was no shortage of, well, maybe there was a shortage of defense, but there was certainly no shortage of goal scoring and fun. I don't know how great of an example these are for what the Leagues Cup will be, because obviously next summer we'll have a break for the Leagues Cup and teams will be able to devote their full talent and resources to the competition. But I think it is an indication of how the fans will respond, and it seemed like it was at least fun and something that people enjoyed seeing. I didn't get any attendance numbers. I didn't see that, but it just seemed like it was fun. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that the numbers in Cincy might be skewed a little bit, considering the numbers in Nashville looked like the lower bowl was full, and
it's also weird because it's a weekday night against a team that, yes, maybe Club America or Chivas are incredibly big names, but it's a Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night, and it doesn't matter. So I think hard to say that attendance should be high, but it looked like you said, it looked like the bowls were full, at least at the lower level, and it looked like the fans were enjoying what they were watching.
Yeah, and
that's important.
Absolutely, and at TQL, I think the crowd was not as large, and I don't know, once again, if it goes to the midweek material or because of the impending doom that Mother Nature was ascending on TQL.
That was the other thing I know. The Nashville game was delayed, so
the 45-minute weather delay in Cincinnati. And
Cincinnati reported attendance was 14,700, which is still better than most MLS teams get on a real day.
True.
So
rock and roll.
Looking at you, San Jose.
But I think it was a fun first step, and tonight RSL has their match against Atlas, who has the opportunity to lose to an MLS team for the second time in 2 weeks. So we'll keep an eye. Did I say that in my out loud voice this morning? I guess I did. All right. So the main reason that we bring you on, and by the way, very, very cool soccer for US Pod, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun for me to record.
And in looking at that one and kind of going down that rabbit hole, there's this one dude. Once again, sidebar before we get into actual soccer. Have you seen the guy that did the mock-ups that are now being picked up by Olive and York?
Yes.
The Declaration of Independence one?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's both encouraging and sad to see the amount of creativity that the U.S. soccer fan base has, and compare that to the lack of creativity that we see from Nike and U.S. soccer. But that Declaration of Independence one is really, really cool. It's also very, it's the perfect example of, I would love to see that in a Gold Cup year or in one of those off years where it's not a World Cup kit, because obviously, might be some problems with that, but like, why not do that the year after the World Cup? Because who cares, right?
Yes.
It's a fun kit, or it's the summer kit for the Gold Cup. One of those things, because that's something that does bother me with Nike right now is they have given us some pretty creative kits the past couple years. I'm not saying I liked all of them, but they were at least creative. And then they come to this, and it's just like,
You can see the question marks over people's
yeah,
heads.
and it is very clear that the fan base wants a very specific type of look for the World Cup. And yeah, so the Olive and York, they picked it up. You've got a really cool, hoops kit. The Waldo is coming
Yeah.
back, but it still looks slightly different than the original Waldo, and that's good. You have the blue kit with the white stars on it, which is really cool. I know back in 2017, the Gold Cup warm-ups had that look. Those are things that clearly fans want to see. So, if you're going to get a fan-made kit like that, people are probably going to buy that more than they will the Nike kits. And I would very much encourage, if you do not like what Nike put out, don't buy it. It's okay. You're not any less of a fan. You can buy one of the fan-made kits. I know personally, I'm getting one of the kits that AO put out because they're red and white stripes, and it just looks so much more like an American kit than, yeah, as noted, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, Rack is on fire with the Stay Puft reference. I mean, and you and I were going back and forth about the body glove surfer warm up stuff that they were showing yesterday at practice. At least that's what it looked like to me. You look like you was like a superhero.
and it does. It also is very tight. So I feel like both of us are right in that it seems a little bit tighter. Maybe that's just because they're more fit than we are. I don't know. It'd be tighter in different areas, that's for sure.
That is true. Yes, for those of us who are gravitationally challenged when it comes to our muscle tone, I'm right there with you. Couple of things as we head in. I guess, how are you watching tomorrow?
Well, I'll be up early.
Mhm.
AO Atlanta is not doing a watch party because 8:30 is the start of work for many people, and I know personally I don't have the time off to just do that when I also have to be taking time off for World Cup matches.
True.
But we will encourage anyone who wants to watch. If they want to go to a bar that's showing it, great. We just didn't want to put that extra strain on our partners at Fido because Lord knows they will be incredibly busy for every World Cup match coming up in November. But I'll probably wake up, turn on the TV, and watch from bed. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
like
Yeah,
I'll be here in the office. I'm going to be
yeah,
looking.
exactly. My office TV will be on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so it'll be kind of like a live discussion while
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk through everything else going on in the world. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, look what just happened.
But AO Atlanta will be announcing some very important news for the World Cup. We'll be announcing that tomorrow. So if you want to give us a follow, you can find us at AO Atlanta on any of the socials. And we'll have important news breaking tomorrow regarding the World Cup. But we will be at Fido on Tuesday for that afternoon game against Saudi Arabia. And a reminder, we do give out free shots for every goal. So if you want to get toasted at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, then come join us.
Safe fandom is always encouraged. And
yes, put in your PTO request now for the World Cup. Obviously, the U.S. plays on a Monday and a Tuesday. The Monday is Thanksgiving week. You may already have that off, so check.
Yes.
And then that Tuesday after the Thanksgiving, luckily the big one is on Black Friday. So if you're working that day, I apologize, but most of us will be at least off in some capacity, especially if you can find a way to get off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I got high school football playoffs at that point, my friend.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the quarterfinals.
My high school team won't be my South Gwinnett probably won't be involved, although they've had a good start to the season.
Gwinnett under Brian Lamar, they've done really well this year.
My brothers won't be involved. They're at Archer, and they're not having a great season.
No, they are not.
No.
All right, so from 30,000 feet, this is you at cruising altitude before we get into the specific questions. What are you looking at when it comes to this window, when it comes to the national team? What are you looking at? What are you looking for from the larger picture?
Yeah, so it's hard to be super critical of the team as a whole because there are injuries in very key areas. So, that still does open up some position battles. And so one of those injury areas is left back. Jedi Robinson is out with an injury. We don't think it's very serious, but obviously, he is still in recovery mode. So that opens up a position battle at left back. And it's not to replace Jedi, but for a very long time, it seemed very clear that Greg was going to take Jedi and Dest as his starting fullbacks, and maybe 2 right backs, and Sergino Dest is your deputy left back. Well, now with Sam Vines in camp, with Joe Scally in camp, Sam Vines a true left back, Joe Scally a swing fullback. He prefers the left or the right side, but if he can, make a case in this camp that he can still play left side very well, or if Sam Vines can make a case in this camp that he can be relied upon to defend on the left side, maybe no, there's no chance for Bello. Maybe you're looking at Sam Vines or Joe Scally sneaking in as the second choice left back. And again, it could be that you still bring, quote, 3 right backs with Joe Scally, but one of those is now a second choice left back. So I think that is a big position battle. So I'm looking at those individual position battles. We also have a battle for the third choice goalkeeper with Ethan Horvath and Sean Johnson.
But is that a battle? Should it be?
Yeah, I think it is a battle, honestly. I think that you have Ethan Horvath, who has been very good for the most part when called upon by the U.S. He's had a couple of blunders, but has been very reliable. And you have Sean Johnson, who has been called in to just about I think he was called into every single World Cup qualifying camp for some reason or another. And Greg Berhalter values that. Greg Berhalter has proven time and time again that he cares more about the person and how they fit into the group than how great they are as a player. I'm not trying to say that anyone is bad, but he definitely prefers the fit within the group over pure talent. And Sean Johnson seems to fit into the group. That's why I do think there is a battle. I also think they're pretty similar goalkeepers. I don't think they're like that much different. I know Ethan Horvath does have experience in Champions League, and that probably gives him the edge from that standpoint. But as goalkeepers, they're not that much different. And then you have position battles at center back. Maybe the fans want it to be a position battle because we're tired of Aaron Long just getting meritocracy points, or not even meritocracy points, nepotism points, and being able to start for Berhalter because of something he did back in 2019 when we didn't know what this team would look like.
Yeah.
But you do have Eric Palmer-Brown and Mark McKenzie coming into camp. Unfortunately, Chris Richards and CCV won't be able to make their final case. I do think that one of those guys is, maybe both of them are going to Qatar. I think you're getting 4 center backs in Qatar. That makes sense on a 26-man roster, but maybe you bring a 5th. He has 9 total defenders on this roster, and I can't imagine he's going to deviate too much from the breakdown, from the splits in positions that he'll have in Qatar. So maybe they're playing for a 5th center back spot. Maybe they're playing for the 4th center back spot. I think that EPB for me is a better all-around defender in that position, and I'd like to see him play. But I'd also like to see Mark McKenzie play. He's had a really good start in Belgium this year, and these are guys who need to take advantage of that opportunity. Another dude, Malik Tillman, has a chance to make one last case to bring him there. But to round out the kind of position battle thing, I think you're looking at Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola fighting for the final spot in Qatar. I don't know why you would bring both of those guys if you have a healthy Tim Weah and a healthy Gio Reyna, and a healthy Pulisic and a healthy Aronson. That's 4 wingers. I can't imagine Arriola and Morris are coming in to, 1, play over any of those guys, and 2, why you would need both of them to have 6 wingers. I think that you might see one of those 2 battling for that final spot on the roster, especially if Christian Roldan is going to be injured going into the World Cup. We don't know how that recovery process has been. We know that Greg Berhalter loves some Christian Roldan for reasons that we're not quite sure of yet.
That Greg Berhalter only knows.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where if you're Arriola and Morris, you have to understand how the numbers are going to break down. You have to understand that where you sit in that depth chart, you have to have some self-awareness of that and understand that this is your last chance to make a case to Greg that you deserve to be going to Qatar in November.
Folks on the Twitch pitch, obviously, you kind of addressed Don Starr's thought about Bello.
Sorry, Bello isn't starting in the second Bundesliga, y'all.
Yeah.
We can talk about that transfer and how that was a bad move for his career another time. But homeboy chased the name and didn't really think about how he would progress as a footballer there. Sorry.
And then the other one, Rack just hates it because all of these discussions, because all he can think of is Miles and what it could have been at the back.
Yeah, I tell you what, Miles needs to figure himself out here. He's. I'm hoping that he understands that his career can still only get better from here, and that he has the future in front of him. It sucks, man. Like, it sucks. I feel so badly for him, and I understand why he is feeling a lot of different ways about how fate has given him this blow. But I really hope that Miles understands that he has an entire city, city, not Cobb County, but the city is behind him, and an entire fan base with U.S. men's national team fans who truly did really like Miles Robinson, want to see him. We want to see him make that next step, whatever that may be, and we want to see him come back healthy and come back strong, and maybe even come back stronger, because he could be a very vital piece of Atlanta United going forward, and possibly a vital piece of the U.S. men's national team come 2026.
Stephen Goff this morning before SDH started, Berhalter says Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman will partner in central defense versus Japan. Possible substitution in the second half. The duo versus Saudi Arabia is undetermined. And then McKenzie, and you mentioned McKenzie and APB are the other center backs. Matt Turner starts in goal Friday for 3GB.
Yeah, I think Matt Turner starting in goal is the one that makes the most sense, because he is. I think I've said for a while he's your number one. I think he's a much better actual goalkeeper than Zach Steffen. Start him. I vehemently disagree with Greg Berhalter that Aaron Long is a starting quality center back at the World Cup level, but we'll find out Friday, because Japan is a World Cup quality team and are pretty darn good. And then even on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia beat out Japan in their qualifying group. I think Japan is a much better team. I don't think that's a strong statement. That's true. But these are two tough opponents, and opponents that are going to give you a taste of what the level will be come November. And we're going to see if Aaron Long can handle it. He hasn't looked good for the U.S. national team. I mean, he's looked okay, but it hasn't been a stellar performance for him anywhere. And he hasn't really looked as good as he has in MLS. And sorry, I do rate MLS as a lower league than what Eric Palmer Brown plays in Ligue 1, or even to an extent what Mark McKenzie plays in the Belgian Pro League. I mean, maybe they're comparable, but at the end of the day, I don't think Aaron Long is saying that he's such a much better player, and he's certainly not performing well or at a high quality in MLS to say that he's better than these players who are doing it in better leagues against better competition week in and week out.
Other question that I wanted to ask you about at the back is Tim Rheem. Right now in the U.S. in the championship, you look at his numbers, especially on the defensive side, and he is, I want to say he's top 1% in interceptions per 90 minutes at just under 4 picks a game. And there are some other metrics where he is in the top 30%, top 25%. But the one about interceptions really does stand out. What is your thought on Tim Rheem and where he either may fit, should fit, or won't fit when it comes to 3GB and what he has in mind?
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to Qatar first and foremost. I don't think he's going. I don't think John Brooks is going. And I think this goes back to our problem, just the general problem with the way Berhalter has approached the U.S. men's national team, and that he's so system oriented. And he says this multiple times. He says, we look at the way we see games playing out and build a roster for that. And while I understand that to an extent, Greg Berhalter very rarely accounts for his plan not working. That's his biggest flaw, is he thinks his plan will work, even though, buddy, you have the most talented generation of American soccer players ever, and somehow still finished third and needed to not screw it up royally on the final match day. So get off your damn high horse and stop thinking that you're some brilliant manager with a brilliant system that players just come into and start producing. We still have yet to see a U.S. men's national team striker play at a decent level. So what makes you think that your system is somehow just going to be so great and so overarchingly perfect that you're not going to need a guy like Tim Rheem or John Brooks, who are definitively better defenders than any other player we have right now on this national team? Sorry, Tim Rheem is one of the best players in the Premier League, and John Brooks has taken a fall, but he's still better than most of the other guys that we have options for. But because they're not fast, which they're not, Greg Berhalter doesn't want him in his team, only because Greg Berhalter sees his team playing this very specific way. Now, I agree that I don't know if Tim Rheem or John Brooks going up against Wales or England is necessarily a great proposition. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know the way that England or Wales are definitively coming out to play against us. And maybe, Wales decides to really bunker. Well, don't you want a ball-playing center back to be able to unlock a bunker defense? I mean, John Brooks did that in Nations League against Honduras, a team that was more than happy to not try to play soccer for the second half of the game.
Exactly.
And kick the ball everywhere. And yes, they tried to counter, but John Brooks was the one who passed the ball to Weston McKennie, who headed it to Jordan Pefok, who scored. And it was his line-breaking pass because he pushed up the field that did that. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that John Brooks or Tim Rheem are going to win us necessarily World Cup soccer games, because I understand where their deficiencies are, and they are not fast. Tim Rheem is doing very well in a back three-ish formation, not having to be someone who is chasing the ball everywhere, chasing defenders everywhere. Obviously, the U.S. doesn't play that type of system. Greg Berhalter wants to play a higher line. He wants to pressure up the field. So it's very fair to criticize Brooks and Rheem, which he has done consistently, for those not being their strengths. But it's just silly to me that you think that those players still don't provide quality that you could have on your team. Specifically Tim Rheem, and John Brooks, on both of them, who have great international experience. John Brooks has scored in a World Cup. And I think that it's foolish to think that they don't bring value to your team. Yet a guy like Aaron Long is just so irreplaceable that you had to call him up to camps to bring him in to rehab while he was rehabbing from an Achilles tear.
John Brooks, let me ask you about John Brooks, specifically his lack of activity in game situations. I mean, yeah. Benfica only picked him up 3 weeks ago. And looking at players who are in form, and I'll get to the striker position in a second, so we'll just put the striker position up here. Players who are getting regular minutes, because I think he's only had one appearance so far in the 3 weeks that he's there, in addition to him not being a guy who is attached to the system, capital T, capital S. And I'll go ahead and reinstate that for the purpose of this conversation. Yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate here with John Brooks specifically because of his lack of activity in the current season and how much of a detriment that could be with someone that you need to have in form in a World Cup situation.
I mean, I'll go back again to say that Aaron Long was called up to the national team. Well, never have, before he played a handful of games after an injury recovery. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at form, I think that it's a term that Greg Berhalter and coaches like to use to justify certain call-ups.
Yeah.
But Ricardo Pepe was called up before he started producing, and he had one assist when he got called up. Now, he's scored since then. We're very thankful for that. But he had one assist, which was he had 2 total goal contributions within the past year. That includes the U.S. national team. So I think the idea of form is something that I think as a fan, we definitely look at and say, well, this guy's playing really well in this league. I mean, if form were the only justification to get called up, Georgi Mihailovic would have been in many camps before this.
But I think form is a moving target to whomever
exactly.
is getting the conversation.
Yeah. That said, I fully understand why John Brooks is not rated as a top defender in this national team anymore, because he had a very big falling out at Wolfsburg. He hasn't looked great for the U.S. men's national team in a very long time. Mm-hmm. And he is struggling to even get minutes in Benfica, which is definitely a step down from Wolfsburg in terms of league competition quality. Maybe not in club. I think Benfica is still possibly a better club than Wolfsburg, but that's a debate for another day.
Right.
But the point is, it's definitely a notch down from where he was, and he's not getting the minutes that he wanted. Now, maybe that is because, hey, he's only been here for a handful of weeks. I don't think he was signed to be a starting center back, but it's fair to criticize or point out that about John Brooks. And that's where I kind of have landed on Brooks, is that I do think something happened between John Brooks and Greg Berhalter, possibly back in that September camp. We know Weston McKennie got into some trouble, and I've heard that maybe John Brooks was involved in some way, shape, or form. I have zero corroboration, but that's just been something that some reporters and some other people who have connections to the national team have hinted at. But I don't know exactly what happened between those two, but something did.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why, again, Greg Berhalter, who values the group over the best 26 players, wouldn't call up John Brooks and hasn't called up John Brooks for, by November, it'll be a full year.
Right.
If you remember, he got called up into that October camp, but he was hurt, and that's where Walker Zimmerman stepped up and shined. And again, credit to Walker Zimmerman, and a knock against John Brooks, taking your opportunities when given to you. And it seems that Brooks hasn't really taken opportunities given to him, both at club and country, for the past year.
All right, let's go up top. And I know that when you hear Josh Sargent sit there and say, my confidence is at an all-time high, yeah, I would maintain, sir, it's Norwich and it's the championship.
Right.
But you've got to, I know that you have to carry yourself that way. Otherwise, why be a striker? Mm-hmm. Why be thinking of yourself as starting quality if you don't carry yourself in that way? When you look,
I'd rather him say he's confident than he's not. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's,
and he looks confident, so that's a plus.
Yeah, especially in the body glove and the Superman outfit.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Who, if you'd like to sponsor this network, feel free, because we'll have VW. We'll put VW spinners up all over the place.
They might be able to bring you some cash in.
Yes, cash would be nice. All right, so striker position. I know, like I said, I look at Josh Sargent and I look at him as almost two separate people. You have the league play Josh Sargent, mm-hmm. and then you have the national team Josh mm-hmm. Sargent that seems to disappear when you need him the most. When you look at the striker position in this window, what do you see?
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys, actually, surprisingly, the one who's been the most productive at the U.S. national team level is Ricardo Pepe, who is the one who's in the least, the worst form at his club. Now, granted, he did score over the weekend. That's great. Very happy to see that. But that's one goal. That's his first goal in almost 365 days. So, we're not doing beer showers necessarily for that quite yet.
No.
I think the problem that we have with our national team, and this is again a criticism of Berhalter, is no forward has looked good. You have Jordan Pefok, who's banging in goals at every league he's been in, mm-hmm. that can't find a goal for the U.S. national team. Now, granted, he missed a great sitter in against Mexico. Yeah. Pulisic also missed a sitter against Mexico. Well, not quite a sitter, but they both missed big opportunities against Mexico. Mm-hmm. But so did Jesus Ferreira, and he seems to be the locked-in starter. Jesus Ferreira missed tons of opportunities throughout qualifying against lesser opponents in Mexico. He missed multiple against El Salvador in a game that we only won 1-0.
Yeah.
Ricardo Pepe looked not great.
No.
In terms of production. Jossie Zardes, good Lord, the biggest criticism I'll have of Greg Berhalter is why the hell you started Jossie Zardes against Canada, because what in the
blue blank.
Yeah, I mean, FCC violation.
Nothing. Yeah. Expletive deleted. I've got
to. So the problem is just we don't have strikers who perform well at the national team level for this team, and that to me is a Berhalter problem, because you do have a guy like Ferreira or mm-hmm. Pefok, or even when Pepe was scoring a lot, he brought in some confidence, but it's not like those goals were created because of the great system Berhalter had. It was kind of desperation at that point. We were down to Honduras at halftime, and Greg had to put everything forward. His job was on the line. So, I don't know how to evaluate these strikers right now because I think they're severely hampered by what the system makes them do. Now, that said, I think that overall, Josh Sargent is the ideal striker for what Greg Berhalter wants his strikers to do, even more so than Jesus Ferreira, who tends to drop a little deeper and not get as into the box as much. I think Sargent is better at doing that. He still very much needs to improve his runs in the box, which have gotten better for Norwich, but early days, we can't base everything based on a couple of, not even a month of games yet. I don't know, but I'm tempted to want to start Sargent, but I also don't know what they're doing in training and who's performing the best in training. But from the clips they've been showing, Josh Sargent's looking good in training. So for me, I would start Sargent that first game against Japan, who's the best team that we're going to be playing. Or the better of the two that we'll be playing, and to see how he operates. Because if he can do it against Japan, I have a lot more confidence he'll be able to do it against Wales or Iran.
Rack, before you had to go to work, so wants to know, are we moving off the Pepe hype train to the Jesus hype train, though?
Hype train, I don't know if I would say that they're hype trains. The Pepe hype train just wasn't on the right track. Let's put it that way. Okay. He had a similar issue to me that I think George Bello had, and they're slightly different, but they went to the Bundesliga because that's a better league. That doesn't mean it's where their talent level was. And I think now that he's with Groningen in the Netherlands in the Dutch league, that is a better place for his talent. Similar to Josh Sargent, who went to Norwich, which the Premier League 1 is a much tougher league. It's, I think, the best league in the world when you look at top to bottom. It's a team that in that league was not good.
No.
Just plain not good.
Nope.
He went down to the championship and has been able to score. I don't think that's a knock against him. I think that's saying, yeah, that's about where his talent level is. Had Josh Sargent, instead of going to Germany, gone to Portugal, maybe France, maybe Belgium or Netherlands, one of those leagues, right? We might have seen him score more frequently because it's a level that fits him a little bit better.
Before we go, what other questions do you have on your mind leading into this first match, where looking at juice boxes, Japan is a slight favorite right now to plus 154. Your 90-minute draws a plus 219, and the U.S. are a plus 177.
Yeah. So I'm wondering how well we can deal with an actual press. I don't think any of the teams we'll play in our group necessarily will do that. Right. I don't think that's England and Wales' prerogative. Iran, I'm not even sure what they'll be looking like from a tactical standpoint and come the World Cup. If they keep their manager, who knows? But I do think that it's good to see that because you're still going to be under pressure in a World Cup setting. So can you deliver under pressure? It may not be the press necessarily, but you'll be pressured. Jesus Ferreira, if he's your starter, is going to have a dude up your back, be it John Stones or Harry Maguire or the center back from Wales or whatever.
You want it to be Harry Maguire at this rate, don't you?
Yeah, if Harry Maguire is starting for England, just cross the ball in the box and he'll head one home for us. So it'll be great. But I want to see how we actually respond to the press, because we're going to be under pressure. The World Cup, the level is at such an intense level. You're playing against two teams in England and Wales whose leagues and national identities are built on hard-nosed, get stuck in football. That's going to be the way that they're going to approach you. It may not be a constant press, but they're going to put you under pressure when you do have the ball, especially in their final third, their defensive third. So I want to see how we respond to that. That's my biggest question tomorrow, specifically. When it comes to the game against Saudi Arabia, I want to see who Greg Berhalter starts, because I think those starting positions are going to be the ones that he goes, these are the guys I want to see one last look of. Obviously, that's the last game he's going to see before Qatar. Mm-hmm. He has tons of data on these guys. So I feel like the Saudi Arabia lineup will be the not experimental one necessarily, but it will be set up to experiment which players are ready and which ones aren't.
Then one last thing before we go. Apparently, according to Nico Cantor, Tata Martino said he's only taking 3 strikers to Qatar. So basically,
they have more than 3?
Raul Jimenez, Funes Mori, Martin, or Santi Jimenez. So basically, if all are healthy, who would you leave out? That's the question that Nico has to the floor this morning. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
That is interesting. Yeah, I think Raul Jimenez and Funes Mori are going.
Mm-hmm. So it'll come down to Martin and Jimenez.
Yeah.
Yes. So Santi Jimenez, not Raul Jimenez. So that is one of the questions to the floor. Okay. Quick promo. What's going on with Soccer for US and with Bartimus Prime as he heads to Vegas?
Okay, so we will have a reaction episode after I get back to the 2 friendlies that are coming up, and we'll probably look at more what does this mean for the Qatar World Cup, kind of as I did in the preview episode. So we'll have an episode coming up next week after they come out. Probably also talk about a couple weeks after that. We'll talk about the U.S. women's team against both England and Spain, 2 very big matchups. So we'll be doing a lot of preview post view, and then we'll have some World Cup previews as well. Again, AO Atlanta will be announcing some great news for the World Cup coming up in November. We'll be announcing that tomorrow, and make sure you follow us there. I do want to point out as a personal. Not even favor, but just as a personal plea. I know it's an international break, but we have lots of women's soccer action coming up this weekend. Arsenal Tottenham on Saturday, and also Houston versus OL Reign on Saturday, which is an NWSL playoff battle. So I know you may be missing soccer either early morning or late at night. It's there. Both of those are going to be on Paramount Plus. So that's plus.
And before we all go as a group, I don't think folks understand how completely and totally wacky, crazy nuts the NWSL is right now when it comes to chasing the playoffs.
Listen, I think there are 12 teams in the league. I think 14 can still make the playoffs, right? No, like, that's just what it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, so after last night, so here's how it is for those that haven't been keeping track. Portland's at 35 points. San Diego's at 34. Rainer at 34, 1 less win. Houston's at 33. Current are at 33, exact same record, but goal difference is big.
Yep. They had a really bad start, but they have been stonks recently.
So Kansas City is in 5th. Red Stars are in 6th at 30. Angel City's at 29. The Courage are at 28. And then you get into 9, 10, 11, and 12, where Gotham probably would be relegated in a certain situation other than that. But Orlando's at 21, Spirit at 19, Racing's at 17. Gotham, I think, have lost 11 in a row now, and they're at the bottom. But, seriously, you look at everybody from 8 on up, and you're only separated by a good week's play. So NWSL, friend of the network, Jen Hildreth, is a key part and parcel to all of those calls.
Hi, Jen.
So
I would definitely say watch NWSL this weekend because there are some important playoff battles. Houston, OL Reign, as you just mentioned, they're a point apart, and those teams at this point now they're doing similar to MLS. They're playing for those home playoff games. Portland and San Diego playing for those first round buys. Shout out to San Diego, by the way, minus some racism incidents in the stands, but 33,000 at Snapdragon Stadium. Mm-hmm. My bet, John, and I'm making a very forecasting prediction.
Okay.
Prediction here. My bet is that the U.S. Women's National Team is playing a send-off friendly in San Diego ahead of the 2023 World Cup.
Not a surprise, and if it's at Snapdragon, if they're drawing low 30s consistently, you want that kind of heat. You want that.
Exactly. I think you'll see one in LA and one in San Diego. That's my prediction. But
there you go. Obviously, what I will do early part of next week on Monday and Tuesday, I will send you the open invite for
Love it.
The. So let's go ahead and say 10 o'clock Eastern hour. If you want to pop in at 8 o'clock local time while you're in Vegas on Monday and Tuesday, I will give you that opportunity. The door will be open. If you are incredibly busy and having to actually do work stuff, we will tape material Monday and Tuesday and turn it later in the day. So the option is there. The forbidden door is open.
All right. All right. I love it.
And so, you can be Kazuchika Okada when it comes to our particular coverage. But be safe. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll be watching on our separate screens and everything. We'll catch up early part of next week to do reviews and previews, and we'll rock and roll from there. Thanks for hanging out again, my friend.
Thank you, John. Everyone, have a great day. Cheers.